Okay, so today's notes are equation of a line. We're going to talk about lots of different ways to write an equation of a line. The cool thing about it is it doesn't matter where you start and where you end. It's like this giant circle. You can get from any one form to another, and there's no wrong way. Okay, so the first one is slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And then, which is the common one. You see that a lot. It's called that because there's my slope and there's my y-intercept. Another form is standard form. Standard form looks like ax plus by equals c. And with numbers, what that looks like, guys, would be something like, here's a little example. 2x plus 3y equals 10. Okay? In other words, the number in front of the x they consider a. The number in front of y considers b. In other words, the x and the y are on the left side, and the constant is on the right. But there's two really important things on this. You need to keep in mind that a can't be negative. What can a not be? What can a not be? Negative. What can a not be? Negative. Okay, don't be mad at yourself on a quiz and test when you forget. A can't be negative. That's a silly mistake that you're likely to make, so be careful. And another issue is no fractions. You're not allowed to leave a fraction. The reason for that, guys, is because actually you can use a and b to find the slope. And if you already, a slope is a fraction, right? So if one's a fraction and the other is a fraction, it gets really confusing and it's hard to use. So no fractions in A and B, or A and B, or C. The another form is point slope. To me, it's the easiest. Point slope form looks like this. Y minus y1 equals n times x minus x1. Kind of weird. But here's a tiny little example of what it might look like in real life. Y minus 3 equals 2 times, let's say, x plus 4. Okay, listen and look up here for a second. The formula says y minus y1. You got to be careful, there's a minus in there. And x minus x1. Okay, and over here on a side note, I want to talk about why these two forms are cool. Okay, we have two forms. One form is y equals, let's say, 2x plus 3. Do you agree that's what form? Slope-intercept, right? The reason that form is cool is because I can just glance at this and I say, all right, I'm going to start at 3 and I have a slope of 2. Correct? So there's my line. You can make a line out of it, right? Okay, the form of point slope, if I take this equation, you haven't used it as much, but it's really cool as well. Watch. On this one, I dug out the y-intercept and the slope, correct? But in here, I pull out a point and give you a slope, which you can graph if you have a point and a slope. What you have to keep in mind is that the points, to get them, we subtracted, didn't we? So you have to take the opposite to dig it back out. So in here, the order pair, this is the x part. So what do you think that x value would be? A negative 4. And this is the y, so the y value is actually what? 3. Okay? So you can dig a point back out. That's why it's called point slope. You can take your point, negative 4, 3, which is approximately here. Then you can look at your slope, which is 2, and graph your line. Okay? So there's two ways. Point slope is here. You dig the point out and use the slope. Now, we'll do more with that in a minute. I was just comparing the two for you. Let's talk about slope. Okay, remember how to find the slope? What is the slope? How do we find slope? Change in good over change in x over 1, right? Okay, change in y, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Y goes on top. Sometimes you'll see it written as a little triangle. Change in y over change in x. Y'all seen that in chemistry before? It represents change. Change in y over change in x. Either way. Okay, one last little thing to remember. The difference between a parallel lines and perpendicular lines. This is just all review. This part. Remember parallel lines? What do we know about parallel lines? How can I look at a line even though it's not graphed and know it's parallel? The slopes are the same. Good. Okay. So for example, y equals 2/3 x plus 5 and y equals 2/3 x plus 2. I'm going to know they are parallel because they have the same slope. That's how I know. Versus perpendicular. Who remembers how to tell if the lines are perpendicular? Oh, wait a minute, what? It's two things. Good, it's the opposite reciprocal. Kids forget, not just the flip. That's not enough to get you perpendicular, right? You need to flip and have the opposite sign. Okay, two things. Remember, it's just been a while. So for example, you might have y equals 3x plus 4, and then y equals negative 1/3 x minus 2. You see it? Flip it and opposite. Slopes are opposite reciprocals. Now we're actually going to go to your notes. Okay. The first says, write an equation of the line with the given information. It asks for this, it gave me the slope and the y-intercept. Why don't we put it in y equals mx plus b form, which is called slope-intercept form. How come that's so easy? Yeah. When they give you the slope and the y-intercept, just put it in that form. It's the easiest. Okay? You may be asked to move it all around, but don't worry. Start there. So that just becomes y equals negative 3/2 x. This is the y-intercept, isn't it? This is b. Okay? What does that look like as a point? So in case they didn't yell, hey, that's the y-intercept, how are you going to know it's the y-intercept? You're going to know it's the y-intercept because what value is 0? The x. Don't let them trick you, right? If they're going to give you something easy, pull it out and use it. So then therefore, it's just plus 4. B is the y-intercept. Write the equation of the line with the given information. They're going to give me the slope and a point. They're going to give me a slope and a point. I don't know if you remember the formula, but it was y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. You may not have used that very much, so I'm going to show you how. Okay. We're going to consider, it's called point slope form because by glancing at it, remember from earlier? Look. Right here. By glancing at this, I can pull a point out, right? Here's my x value, -4. Here's my y value, 3. I can pull a point out, and it gives me the slope. That's why it's called point slope. So the point that they gave me is right here, the x and the y. Let's try it. The more you do it, the better you'll get. So I write y minus whatever the y is. So that's a 3 this time. It's called point slope because we need to use the point. M is my slope, -5, times x minus 1. There you go, you're finished. That easy. Okay. Then it asked us to turn it into slope-intercept. Which one is slope-intercept? Y equals mx plus b, correct? You already have it. Remember me telling you about one giant circle? You can go from one to the other to one to the other. You can transfer them any way you want. It's a big circle. So I've got it in point slope. Let's turn it into y equals, right? Or slope-intercept. Okay, so you're going to start by y minus 3 equals -5x minus 1. We're going to distribute the 5. Be careful, it becomes -5x plus 5. And then move the 3 to the right by adding it. Okay, let me put your pencils down. Let me say something. Both of these are special because you're going to get the same line if you graphed it. This one here, you don't have to write this down. I just want to show you. This line here, I would pull the point out, which is 1, 3, and then I would use the slope of a -5 and graph the line. Okay? This line, I would start at 8 and use the slope of a -5. It's the same exact line. It's just a different way to get there. Are you seeing what I'm trying to say? Okay, I just wanted to make that connection. All right, now let's move to this. Slope-intercept. It's the y equals mx plus b form. Okay, do I have either? No, it's crummy when you don't have either. So step 1, let's find the slope. Okay. You have to have the slope in every form, so let's find it. M equals, remember, y's go first. So we go, I like to draw a little arrow, y2 minus y1, isn't that what the formula said? So 5 minus a -3, watch your signs. And then go the x's, y2 minus, so it's 2 minus a -2. Which gives you 8/4, so the slope is 2. It asked for slope-intercept. I have this slope now. Do I have b? No. Look at my points. Is there 0 something there? No, didn't give it to me. When they don't give it to you, my opinion then is to go to point slope. Do like we just did this one. Put it in point slope and move it over. Okay? So if I put it in point slope, that's going to be step 1. The formula is up here in green. We just used it. So we're going to say, all right, okay, I've got 2 points. Does it matter which one I use? No. If the right side of the room used one and the left side of the room used the other, we would get the same answer. Okay? But because all of us want to look the same and it makes it easier to compare notes, let's just all always use the first point they gave us. That way when you ask your friend, why does my line look different than yours? It'll help, okay? But they would be the same in the end. So let's just use the first point. Y minus a -3 means it's going to turn plus. Equals your slope, which we just found was 2, times x minus a -2 makes it plus 2. Remember, we're using the opposites because of the minus. That's point slope form, but that's not what they want. They wanted slope-intercept. So distribute the 2 and clean it up. So I distributed the 2. I'm going to move the 3 over by subtracting. And there it is. Okay? So to get to this form, we put it in point slope and moved it over. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Okay, we'll finish when you guys get back. Have a good lunch. All right, let's go to number 4. So standard form, remember, is the ax plus by equals c format. And like I mentioned earlier, it's like a big circle, correct? So you can pick any form you want to start with. Well, if it gives you the slope and the y-intercept, you would start there, but it doesn't. It gives you some points. So instead, let's start with point slope. Find the slope first. Let's start with that. We go backwards. 7 minus 2 over 6 minus 4. 5 halves. So the slope in this problem is 5 halves. We talked about using a point, and so that we all kind of are using the same point. Let's do the first one. The formula for point slope, if you've forgotten, is y minus y1 equals n times x minus x1. That's the formula. Go to point slope form first. I'm going to use this point. So y minus 2 equals the slope of 5 halves times x minus 4. You can either distribute the 5 halves, or you can multiply the whole thing by 2. Which one? Do you have any preferences? Okay, you bet. It doesn't matter. You're going to get the same answer. Let's multiply the whole thing by 2 and see if you can remember how to do it accurately. That's the issue you're going to have. Okay, so 2 times y is 2y. That was a tough one. Okay, and then negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Thank you. This is where we get tricky. I want this entire thing by 5 halves, correct? So if I just deal with the 5 halves, I'm multiplying the whole thing by 5 halves. It's the same thing. So let's cancel here and here, and you just get the 5. You don't distribute the 2 inside also. Now I'll finish it out. It wants standard form. Don't forget the form we want. The standard form has x and y on the left and the constant on the right. Remember, it's like this. X and y on the left, the constant on the right. So we're going to move the x to the left. The y is already on the left, so we're just going to leave it alone. And what are we going to do that for? Where's it going to go? Really? Where's the 4 going to go? Good. It's to the right. So add 4 to both sides. Okay, can I box my answer? How come no? What's wrong?
Negative.
You're right. A can't be negative. So flip it around. You gotta divide everything by a negative 1. Then number 5. It's asking for point slope. This problem is actually so easy. It gave me a point and a slope. So you don't even have to rotate it around your circle anywhere. You just write it in point slope form. Okay, there's the slope and there's a point. See if you remember it. Y is minus, so it turns to the positive. Equals my 2/3 slope times x minus 4. That was an easy problem. Number 6. Slope intercept. That is the y equals mx plus b form. And this is a little unique. It's asking us, it gave us a point, and it wants us to have a line. So we're going to create a new line. But our new line has to go through 1, 4. It has to be parallel to the line they gave us. So what slope do I need to use in my new line? 5. Because the parallel lines have the same slope. So the slope that, it doesn't come out and yell, hey, the slope is 5, right? But it kind of gives it to you hidden. So here's the slope. So m equals 5. We're going to use that slope because we want a parallel line. We don't need to manipulate it in any way. And the point we're going to use is 1, 4. If I've got a point and a slope, where should I start? Point slope. Now, if I have a point and a slope, and my point happens to be the y-intercept, then I would start at the y equals mx plus b form.
Coffee machine.
It's a stop for your coffee. Okay, let's plug it in. Okay, start with y minus 4 equals 5 times x minus 1. Distribute and you're finished. Point slope's very easy, especially when there's no fraction. So distribute your 5. Move your 4 to the right. You're done. Does that make sense? Number 7. What kind of line am I asking for here? Kind of my favorite. They're the easy ones. Point slope, correct? What info did it give us? It gave us a point, yay. Okay? And it gave us a slope, kind of. It wants perpendicular line. So here's my slope. It didn't come out and yell it to us, but it tells us what we were doing. So my slope it gave me was -3/4. But I'm going to immediately put an X through that. Guys, I noticed last year kids sometimes would get kind of in a hurry, and when they glance over, they would use that slope. But I'm going to immediately put an X. That's the current slope, and we're not using it because we want perpendicular. So what's my perpendicular slope? Right, you have to flip it and change the sign, opposite reciprocal. And I just use the perpendicular symbol here. And it wants point slope form. So you're finished. Okay. Y plus 4 equals 4/3 times x minus 6. Number 8. It wants standard form. That's the ax plus by equals c. A can't be negative, and no what? What's not allowed? No fractions. That's the kind of world y'all like, right? Okay, no fractions. Does it give me a slope? Does it give me a point? Yeah, kind of sneaky, but it does. But it gave me the x and y intercepts, which are points. Okay, in the x-intercept, the y value is 0. And in the y-intercept, the x value is 0. There's your 2 points. Did it give me a slope? No. Can you find the slope? Yes. The slope is change in y, so it's 2 minus 0 over change in x, which would be 0 minus a -1/4. You have to be careful. 0 minus a -1/4. So technically you have 2 over 1/4. You can do it in your head without a calculator. If you have $2, try to break $2 into fourths. What are fourths when we're talking about money? Quarters. How many quarters fit in $2? 8. Right? Okay, so 8's your slope. The directions were standard form. Okay, let's look at what I have, because I'm on a circle, where should I start? Should I start at point slope? Should I start at y-intercept? Should I start at standard form? They gave me the slope and these 2 points. I could use point slope form, but what would be even easier? They gave me a point and what? Y-intercept. I would start there. If you start at point slope, you're not wrong. You get the same answer as me. It's just that this is easier. Okay. So I'm going to start with y equals, you use your slope and say, okay, y equals 8x plus 2. I want standard form, so I need the x and y to be on the left. So move the ax over. You're not allowed to have a -a, so we're dividing everything by -1. Number 9. It's asking for slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. Remember, it's called that because I can find the slope. and B is the y-intercept. Okay, it gave us a table. We got a table yesterday. Can we find the table from, we find the slope from the table? Yes, slope is change in y over change in x. What's x changing as I go through this? I'm adding how much? 4. What's the y's changing? Be careful with the signs. What am I doing? Adding 3. So what's the slope? Be careful, it's y over x. What's the slope? 3 over 4. They wanted the slope intercept. Okay, let's look at the info I have. I have the slope. I don't have y-intercept. None of these points had 0. So I've got to take a point out of it. Well, there's 3 points there. We're going to use the first point. You can use any point and you'll get the same line. So don't feel like you mess up, use a different point. We're going to start with point slope. Y plus 10 equals 3/4 times x plus 2. 2 options. Distribute the 3/4 and multiply by 4. What would you like to do? Does anybody want to distribute the 3/4? Okay, we'll do multiply by 4. You can distribute the 3/4, but then you have fractions. So multiply the whole thing by 4. You get 4y plus 40 equals, these cancel, 3 times x plus 2. What are you going to do next? Distribute. 4y plus 40 equals 3x plus 6. You need the x, what 40 go? Y equals mx plus b. So move the 40 over. You're subtracting 40 here. So you end up with a negative 36. Now you have to divide everything by what? Divide everything by 4. Is it the 4 I asked for? Yeah. Questions? What did I do wrong? Oh, I see. Guys, I made a mistake right here. What should this be? Thank you. I just was working too fast. And then when I divide by 4, you get 34 over 4, don't you? Does that reduce? So y equals 3/4 x minus 17/2. Is that better? Yeah, I apologize. We're almost finished. Questions? Please.
So then the plus 2 times the 4.
Okay, we talked about that. Done that several times. Now, using this method is risky if you don't understand it. It's the same as the warm-up. Okay, and it's the same as the poem we did before. You agree that this says 3/4 times all of this? So if I change this, I essentially change what I'm doing to all of it. Do you see what I'm talking about? So when I reduce this 4 cancels with this 4, and you get just a 3. By changing this, you're changing what you've done to everything. So you get 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 2 is 6. Is that what you were asking me? Okay. I knew that would come up, which that's why that's risky. If you don't understand how to do that, then you shouldn't. You should distribute the fraction in it that way. The problem with going the other way is then you can make errors with the subtraction of fractions. So it's kind of a no-win. Right, the last 2. I'm not going to do this one all the way. I think y'all are pretty good, but I'm going to start you out. It says write a linear function in slope-intercept form, but look what they gave you. Slope-intercept. I need the slope and the y-intercept. Do I have either? What can I dig out? You've got to be able to dig out some information. We can actually do it. What info can we dig out? Okay, y is 2 and negative 3, but when you look at this actually, this says f of 2 equals negative 5. Which one was actually the input? The 2 or the negative 5? The 2. 2 is the input, and what was the output? So the point is actually, you had the right idea, but the point was actually 2, negative 5. Do you see it? Input f of 2 gave me negative 5. What about this point? What would it look like? If I put in negative 3, I get out what? 1. That's an ordered pair. You don't even need to see the function. It gave me a point on it, didn't it? It told me the point in that method. Okay, so slope-intercept, we don't have an intercept, so we need to find a slope. M equals, let me go this way, 1 minus negative 5 over negative 3 minus 2. So the slope is, watch your signs. Okay, and then you would just keep going. 1 minus negative 5, that's a plus. And negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. So the slope is a negative 6, or 6 over negative 5, either way. You would just keep going. Do you guys understand how to keep going with that? To put it in slope-intercept? Absolutely, right? It's the same as all the others. Okay, go to the last problem then. Determine if each pair of lines is parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Parallel, what do we know about parallel lines? Same slope. Perpendicular, opposite reciprocal. How do we decide if there's a parallel without graphing? What do we do? Excellent. Yeah, just put in y equals. Right? So I'm going to label this line 1 and line 2. For line 1, we're going to say 2y equals 8x minus 12. I just moved the 12 over. Now divide everything by 2. So this is line 1. Line 2, I'm going to move the 12x over and divide by 3. What do you think? The slope of line 1 is 4 and the slope of line 2 is 4. Are they parallel? Yes, absolutely. Go to B. Decide what you take. Parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Start with line 1. Go to line 2. Look at the slopes. Parallel, perpendicular, or neither. What do you think? They're flipped and they are opposite. Okay, so you're finished. I'd like for you to work on your homework now.